Good evening. My name is Rod Heiss, and I'll be the moderator for tonight's Village Board Candidates Forum. The Mount Horeb Area Chamber of Commerce is hosting tonight's forum as a service to the community. At this spring's election, there are 4 candidates running for 3 seats on the board. The top 2 vote getters will earn 3-year terms, while the third will earn a 2-year term. Here's the format for tonight's forum. The candidates are seated in alphabetical order. I will start with a question to the first in that order. He will have 3 minutes to answer the question. When his time expires, the other candidates will have 5 minutes to ask a 5-minute follow-up question and have discussion on the same topic, including the first candidate who was questioned. I'll refer all times and the germaneness of the topics raised during the follow-up. Rachel, the Chamber's extraordinary executive director, will be our timekeeper. Candidates, are there any questions about the format of tonight's forum?
No.
Hearing none, we'll move to introductions. But before I do that, I want to thank Wisco Radio for helping to make tonight's forum possible through their broadcast of this event. Thank you very much. We're lucky to have a community asset like Wisco Radio. It's now my pleasure to introduce the candidates. Nate Gauger. Nate was raised in Mount Horeb. He graduated from UW-Madison with a degree in geography, cartography, and GIS. He's lived in the village since 2006, working in local restaurants and serving as a volunteer EMT for the fire department. He is attending paramedic academy at Madison College and works as a pharmacy technician for Dean St. Mary's Hospital. Ben Jones. Ben has worked as an attorney for 3 government agencies and now is an administrative judge for the state of Wisconsin. A graduate of St. Louis University and the University of Minnesota Law School, Ben previously served on a city planning commission and a county advisory board. He and his wife have 3 children. Kathy Scott. Kathy is seeking re-election to the village board. She was first elected in 2014. Kathy moved to Mount Horeb after living in Illinois for 29 years. She was well known in village government for speaking candidly about the issues and making jokes during the meetings. I imagine we'll hear a few from Kathy tonight. Kathy takes pride in doing her homework and researching issues with dogged determination before debating and voting on them. Tim White. Tim has been an active local progressive political organizer and activist for many years, co-founding and helping to run Southwest Wisconsin area progressives. He is retiring from the say this 5 times fast, the lithography trade. I can't even say it once slow. And several years of manufacturing work. He and his wife Karen recently moved the village from the town of Springdale. We'll now move to our first question. Nate.
Yes.
The Mount Horeb Area Chamber of Commerce is often identified as one of the pillars of the community, along with the village and school district. How much influence should the Mount Horeb Area Chamber of Commerce have in government affairs, and how much influence do you think it has?
All right. I was just reviewing the website tonight, and the list of businesses that are associated with the chamber is impressive. It's pretty much everyone. So it's really successful, active. I've been to a number of events as a representative of various businesses and always had a good time, and the members are very engaged. And, members of the chamber really have a firm grasp of what's going on in town because they're so actively engaged in almost every aspect of the community. Whether they're landowners or renters, and their livelihoods are based here. Many of them live here. The fact that they're so engaged with almost every aspect of the community is impressive. As far as how much influence they should have on government, I think they have as much right input as any other group in town, really. They have unique perspectives. Part of what makes Mount Horeb vibrant and unique is its mix of businesses. So I think the village board can and should listen to the chamber and its members and integrate their thoughts. That said, their input should not be greater than any other vested interest in the community too. So keeping in mind that we need to research everything and verify things and keep an open mind too, while incorporating their input. Yeah, let's leave it at that.
Great. Thank you, Nate. The other three candidates have a follow-up question for Nate, or would like to make a point of their own on this question?
Well, I'd be happy to just not follow up, but to make my own statement about the chamber.
Please.
The first thing I did was join the chamber when I moved here and offered to volunteer, and I joined. And the reason I did that was because I wanted to get to know Mount Horeb. I knew nothing about it. So in doing that, I met a lot of people. We get a lot of tourists, and what's cool is people would come through and they would be my age or younger, but they were retiring and they wanted to think of moving here because their kids were hooked up with UW or something like that. So I think the chamber has a huge influence on not only getting people to move here, because we get so many tourists and people are, they're mobile, they move around now, but also we have a lot of different types of members. I mean, some are joined for no other reason because it's the right thing to do. When I owned a business, we joined the chamber because it's the right thing to do, to support your community. I think the village works closely with the chamber. They have an open ear to the chamber. I think if the village had something they would like the chamber to do, they would feel free to ask the chamber. They have a very good, in my opinion, working relationship.
Great, thank you.
I think the chamber is incredibly important as well. And I think it's got a pulse in the community, and that's really what the village board and the village government needs to reflect as well. So I think they go hand in hand. And it's not just folks coming to town for tourist events, but it's also for residents at a full-service community is very important. And more and more I'm finding that out because since I have actually moved to town instead of driving to town, it's incredibly nice not to go anywhere. We get in the car once or twice a week. It's wonderful. So having a full service where there's many products products and services that are available, I think is really important, and the chamber is very influential in getting those and for keeping those and for attracting visitors as well.
Well, I'll just write a brief note. I think Nate is of course correct that what the chamber thinks isn't always going to line up with what's the interest of the village. Just like General Motors, what's good for General Motors isn't necessarily what's good for America. What's good for the chamber here, of course, it's not always going to line up. But we are lucky, I think, to have a very diverse chamber of commerce. We have some large regional businesses and many small businesses scattered through many different industries here. So this isn't a one-horse town. So we're lucky to have a chamber of commerce that not only is active and involved, but really does represent a wide range of interests. So I think the amount of input and insight that they're going to have in the community is really quite large, and we'll always be listening to them here in the village, one of the top of the list.
Great. Thank you. Any other comments on this topic? All right, we'll move on. This question is for you, Ben. What do you think are the biggest obstacles that the village has for attracting new business or retaining current business, and how would you address those obstacles?
Well, there's a lot of challenges here. I think one is just breaking through the noise. So there's a lot of good places where people can start businesses here in Wisconsin and in the region and the country. So, it's tough to really make Mount Horeb stand out. And so I think, outreach and marketing is really a crucial aspect of bringing business into the community. That's not to say the village isn't doing that. I think we have been very aggressive. You know, we created the development director position. The chamber is very active here. So I think we've taken a lot of steps, and we need to keep in that line and do more to make sure that we're reaching out to entrepreneurs and possible businesses. And so we're putting ourselves out there on the map that we know this is the place to be. So I mean, that's always an obstacle here. I mean, I think some of the other burdens here, you know, it's expensive to build. You know, we always have to be aware. It's not just the direct construction costs or what have you, the business, but all of the hoops you have to drum through with land use and everything like that. And we need to be conscious that we are, as a village, being as streamlined as possible with those processes while maintaining, you know, the protections and the quality control that we count on from the city, so from the village. So those are big. I think it's easy to get to drift on some of those things. Some other obstacles. No, I think it's difficult to, just as important as getting businesses, keeping businesses. So we're gonna have to be conscious of, you know, the property tax rates and making sure that we're allowing people to live here in the community. So, you know, and travel here. So, I mean, there's been parking issues in the past. Everything, you know, our businesses rely on tourists being able to come into the village, as well as our residents here. It's all interconnected. So I think we need to be conscious that we're not letting parking slip as we continue further development, so customers can come here, as well as they're allowing enough residents to support to live here affordably to support the businesses that bring into the community. Of course, there's more, but I think that's a good run through of the major obstacles we're going to be facing in the future.
Great. Thanks, Ben. Discussion from the other candidates.
I hate being people who sit there and don't say anything. So drives me nuts. Speak up, people.
You are.
Well, I'm not. I don't want to be speaking up. I think the obstacles well, first of all, we're having a comprehensive plan meeting March 30th, and if all goes as planned, both the Planning Commission and the Village Board will adopt it. And a lot of people worked a very hard time to get this comprehensive plan put together. One of the things the village wants to work on is doing infill, so where there are open spots, get those filled in. And then we have an outlying area that we have a right to have 1.5 miles around the entire village. And one of the issues is, of course, our topography is wonderful for tourists and enjoyable and all that kind of stuff, but it ain't real fun when it comes to sewers and water pipes. I mean, it can be a nightmare, so it's very costly. So that's something to keep in mind. I think we do have the Economic Development Director now, and there's also a Community Development Authority, CDA, and I put in the thing that I wrote for the paper. I really think the CDA, the committee, should take a more active role, being led by the Economic Development Director, to have them all help look for other properties and or meet with business owners, use some of the committee's talents to be more aggressive and not just have it be all those duties settled on one person.
Anyone else on this topic?
I'd like Kathy go first, because I was going to echo her as far as the comprehensive plan. I think it's a wonderful piece of work, and looking at it, you know, quite a few times, I think it is a vision, and it's a way to it should be a tool moving forward where we can apply our decisions to that plan. And I've got nothing but good things to say about it. And as far as a good portion of the plan is retaining the good that we have and then building on that. And we've all been to towns, different parts of the state and country that we find something very good about or really bad about. and we talk about both. And it's, you know, and Mount Horeb, I think, is an attractive place to visit, and it's an attractive place to live. And I think we're blessed with a town that isn't boarded up and has got, is community minded and has many small local businesses. And I think we're doing a good job, and I think the comprehensive plan is a important tool that we can use going forward.
Great.
I agree with many of these comments. Just wanted to comment. I met with Rowan, the Economic Development Director, and she was very enthusiastic with the state of demand for business property and for just any kind of facility for hosting businesses in Mount Horeb. There's a lot of pent-up demand, very strong indicators that people want to do business here. That said, Ben mentioned affordable housing, allowing people to, or helping people afford to live here, considering that that's part of attracting businesses. You need workers. It's a struggle for everyone right now. I agree with Tim that the comprehensive plan is fantastic. And then Kathy with thoughtful annexation, just looking at that as a way to grow the town, but also play nice with the neighbors. But I think the comprehensive plan addresses it really nicely, and we're on the right track.
There's way too much agreement so far.
Yeah, sorry.
Let's get some fireworks.
I'll try to be more contentious next time.
You said you are?
No, I'll try.
Okay.
All right, Kathy, you're up. The Mount Horeb Area Chamber of Commerce is made up of businesses in the village and surrounding communities. At times, disagreements between municipal governments can have a negative effect on these businesses. How would you prevent or minimize the effect of these disagreements, and what role do you think the chamber should have in these situations?
You know, I'm a pretty simple person. I don't have a clue what you're asking. Are you saying if somebody, a business from Middleton joins our chamber?
No, there are businesses in our area that are not necessarily located in the village, but like, for example, the town of Springdale or
What
other.
businesses are there?
Well, what businesses are there? Well, there's
a wonderful honey business in the town of Springdale.
there is
Well, there's a honey business and there's a great bar.
Yeah, there's actually more than one great bar.
Oh,
This is Wisconsin, yes.
I mean, I don't know what you're,
And there's
what it means. Give me an example.
Rephrase.
If the chamber represents both businesses in the village and outside of
Okay.
the villages, sometimes those municipal governments have disagreements.
Okay.
So the question, Kathy, is how should the chamber be involved in those situations when they may have members both inside and outside of the village? And what's your best advice to Rachel about how to handle a situation like that?
Okay.
Because
now that I understand.
essentially what you might have is members with very different interests, right?
Right, no, okay, now I understand it. Well, my first response is we're not Mother Mutual, the chamber.
Right.
I mean, we're not here to, we're not playing in the sandbox with everybody nice. I mean, if that business from Springdale or Blue Mounds or Middleton doesn't like what we're doing, well then, quit the chamber. I can't believe people would quit because of that. I mean, that says a lot about that person who owns the business. To me, they're pretty close-minded. Because I don't think the chamber comes across strong, with armor that you gotta go along and like what Mount Horeb is doing in the community. I just don't picture the chamber being like that. So I don't really have, that's all I have to say. It's sort of a stupid response, but I don't see even why we're being asked that.
Yeah, I tend to agree because, the chamber is a cheerleader. And I don't know why anybody, no matter whether they live in Springdale or Vermont or Blue Mounds or Primrose or any other place, would turn down a cheerleader. It's would be counterintuitive for me. And so.
Good, thank you.
That's,
Well, I'll say that, I'm a judge, in parties' disputes, I would assume that the chamber is going to be best off playing a mediator judge role if their businesses are disagreeing. I mean, from the village board perspective, I think this is a great example of where the interests of the chamber wouldn't necessarily line up with the village. We got to take, the board is going to have to look out for the residents of Mount Horeb, and if there's disagreements with municipalities, we should be diplomatic about that, of course, and try to find consensus if possible. But the board is going to have to look out for the interests of Mount Horeb, and the chamber is going to have to play a diplomat, judge and mediator with their businesses, and
You're
that's
great.
a different role there. Good job.
Anyone else on this topic? We can move on. If not, Nate?
I can see where there'd be potential friction, businesses in neighboring jurisdictions with annexation and things like that. If they're part of the chamber, they're willing to be a part of a greater organization that incorporates all these thoughts, I think, and that's good. It's part of civil engagement. But like Ben said, agreeing again with Ben, something the village board can take into account. But I could see where things could arise that there'd be a little bit of friction with businesses on the edge of things, let's say.
All right. Anyone else? Great. Tim,
Alrighty.
the state and the county have laws and ordinances and other requirements for businesses that can be burdensome. What should the village's role in helping, what should be the business's role in helping to overcome those burdens?
The business's role?
Did I say the business's role?
Yeah.
I meant to say the village's role.
Yeah, the village's role. Well, there's a myriad of regulations for just about everything, and a lot of the regulations are for a purpose. I think you have to sometimes you have to look beyond the wording of the regulation and see why you have a regulation. As far as the I think this was about the chamber or the town board, what the town board can do.
The village.
The village. Well, I don't, if it's a county or it's a state regulation, I think the village abides by it. I think we can help out a new business owner by telling him the parameters of, and working with him, whether it's a zoning issue or a setback issue or something like that, and so he complies with regulation. So I'm sure there's some regulations I'm baffled at, but without a specific one, that's kind of my answer.
Okay. Anyone have a follow-up?
Well, I wanted to say, it's tough. This is a kind of a vague question. I'm not sure what burdens they have in mind, and there are many, of course. But I think it's important the village try to stay in its lane, and that applies to burdens on business. It applies to hot button issues and all sorts of topics. Of course, there's gray zones. It can be tough to draw the lines on what the village really is involved with. But I think we don't set state and county rules. We're not going to. We don't necessarily have a ton of insight. Now, and there's some cases where we maybe have some local knowledge to share with the state or the county, and we can be involved with doing that. But we should be careful to try to, keep to our lane. I encourage businesses to talk to their county and state representatives when they have concerns with those burdens there at those levels.
I'm thinking about Skull. Been a hot button topic lately in town, the alley lease negotiations with the village. And we learned from the village lawyer that, the law is clear, state law, that it is a public alley. Access to the public is guaranteed by state law. But we also saw in the same meeting that the village was working out options, and encouraging the businesses to work together and try to find a compromise. And there are, in fact, legal avenues to possibly make something work, like decommissioning the alley, things like that. So, yeah, it's pretty clear-cut state law, but there are things that can be done, and the village board did a good job of facilitating it. And not sure exactly how it's going to play out, but it sounds like there was action on the compromise, and things are going to happen. So.
Can I jump off that real quick, Nate?
Yeah,
I think you're absolutely right. That shows exactly where the village has a role. I think village staff can often be a good source of information on these things for businesses that are trying to navigate issues. So I think that's a great use of where the village is trying to work with businesses to deal with what they can.
Let me ask the question a little bit more pointedly. So what? Because I've been in other communities where the economic development director has a very direct role in trying to help businesses unburden themselves from the burdens that we've been talking about. So what is your vision for the village's economic development director and the role that she might have with businesses and unburdening themselves of those of the burdens that we've been talking about? Because we've been talking sort of in the abstract about, so what is the role of that person in helping businesses work their way through the red tape of the county or even the state?
Well, I think you can't do two. I mean, when you're going to be owning a business or you are a business owner, you have to take responsibility for some of your things. I don't think that the economic development director is responsible for taking someone's hand and walking them through every process. I do think she's responsible for having a bullet list of things that need to be accomplished, which would help them, and then they have to do it. It's very time consuming to, I mean, we had a case recently, and it's just very time consuming to go beyond the call of duty when this could be done by the business owner themselves. It gets frustrating. With Skull, I think that was a great idea. You brought it up. You brought it up. Okay, Nate, okay. It really is not illegal to do what, I mean, you gotta understand, no offense to you because you're a lawyer, but lawyers, interesting people. My father was one, so I mean, I've been on both sides, but that was the leading statement. It's completely illegal. Well, if you keep pushing hard enough, no, it's not completely illegal at all. You can use it temporarily. What does temporarily mean? Well, that's a gray area. So push the envelope. I mean, I'm not one to just follow a rule because it's there. I want to find out why it's there, and then if it makes sense, then you accept it. So that worked. I mean, that did work out nicely.
Can I say something specific about that issue?
Sure.
The Skull controversy, the patio things aside, I've walked downtown many times and looked at it and wondered about the actual safety of having an alley that's 1/2 block from the stoplight on the main clear of Mount Horeb, and an alleyway that was created when we certainly didn't have the vehicles that we have now or the traffic we have now. And I'd like to just say that personally, I think that's a safety issue, and Main Street is not the way to exit or enter it. And since I've been thinking about that, I think that public safety is a really important thing, and it just seems like a truck coming out of there and crossing traffic when you have parked cars on both sides is a safety issue. So I think I just wanted to get that.
Well, good point, and I happen to be on the Public Safety Committee, and we just met, I think, Monday night. And it'll be on our May agenda. We're having it all looked at safety-wise. Am I over? Forgot time's out.
It's a good discussion.
I feel like we're all
Finish your
quiet on
thought.
this, but
Finish
yeah.
your thought, Kathy. Go ahead.
No, that's all right. Stay tuned.
All right, Nate. And this will, don't panic at the breadth of the first part of this question. We'll get.
It's gonna be a long pause while I write it down.
Yeah, exactly. What is your vision for the downtown area? What types of businesses, residences, and amenities should the village pursue? And how does the village ensure that whatever is done downtown fits with and doesn't disrupt the businesses that are there already? And I assume by fits with, we mean the aesthetics of the business, so there's a sort of a cohesiveness about the businesses on Main Street.
Okay, that's a nice meaty question, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, I'm a big downtown fan. I think it's what brings many people to town, not to discount things outside of the core, but it's the quaint, compact downtown area that hosts a lot of the tourist activity, let's be honest. We have an intriguing mix of businesses now, and I do support, Kathy mentioned infill development, utilizing existing or underdeveloped space and really prioritizing that, not only from a just efficiency standpoint, an economic efficiency standpoint for the village. You already have water, sewer, et cetera, services there. It's denser development, it's more green. You have people in town who live and possibly work there. It just enhances the vibrancy of the downtown area. I think it's addressed really well in the comprehensive plan. Something I hear about from residents is the scale of buildings that are being proposed for downtown. Perhaps worries that we are building too tall or too dense. I think the village does a good job of balancing those interests. From what I've seen, the planning commission is pretty, they ask pointed questions and they really don't let developers just, they make pointed suggestions and they're taken into account. Pretty serious changes that could be costly too. So there's been talk of reinstating the Historical Preservation Committee as a standalone entity, and I support that. One of my previous roles was working with zoning and permitting for telecommunication sites, and part of that I did historical analysis for sites that were either on a historic building or near historic properties or buildings, and learning about how the historical and the historical integrity of historic districts is a balance of all the things in that district and how they impact each other. So I think having that independent committee analyzing everything going downtown interacts with each other and is important. So
Awesome.
okay.
Great. Others on this topic?
I'd just like to echo the historic value that Mount Horeb has for not only attracting people, but keeping our culture. I worked for 15 years doing newsletters and website and some programming for the Historical Society. And that time, you really got to, once you know the culture of the community and the history of the community, it just draws you in, and I think it's a real asset. It gives us identity. It's also a destination for people to come, because it's not like every other town. And so I just think that it's really important that we keep the historic integrity downtown. And I fully agree that historic preservation should be a standalone committee. And I think it has been ignored in the past. And I think we're doing a pretty good job of paying better attention to it these days than we were. So.
I'll just say, one, I think there's a lot of synergies, especially downtown. I think new businesses have benefits on the other businesses because, it's a destination and it helps there's kind of a little bit of a joint interactive ecosystem there. I just want to say, I do think we should be wary of a top-down vision of exactly what's going to go there and what will happen. That I absolutely agree that we need to be aware of the aesthetics and of new buildings or changed buildings, as well as how they fit. But you know, the mix of businesses that have been done has changed over the years and evolved, and we should be, you know, reluctant to force things into a preconceived box of where we think it'll be in the future. We should guide rather than you know, dictate what goes and what ends up downtown.
Great. Kathy?
I was just gonna say, I think we've been fortunate with business people that wanna own a business coming forward, and we do have a variety. I think some businesses, I don't know, I sort of feel like they're a hobby to some of these owners. I don't know, the hours aren't real long and all that, but, you know, I think like having Driftless come, Bistro, two really nice destination, totally different level, I mean, of a restaurant than like Skull and the Grumpy, where you can get full meals, and they're great, you know, for that. But it just has been sort of happening that stuff just comes. But you can't assume that that's always going to happen. We're just very lucky, and I think we're lucky because we're a thriving community, and people want to be here. They want to come here. They want, you know, people know Mount Horeb.
So we've got 2 minutes left in our 5, and I want to ask you one angle of a downtown question, and that is historically parking has been the subject of a lengthy discussion about downtown. In your estimation, how are we doing on parking? I mean, obviously there was the demolition of the firehouse, which provided a lot of new parking. But are we where we need to be, or we still need to do some additional work?
I think it's an issue, but I think we have to look at new development as exasperating the problem that you have now. And for instance, and I recognize that the 2 layers of parking in a new apartment complex is there, but you know, that's the new people are moving in, so it's actually kind of a net loss for parking. I will say though that parking downtown is troublesome sometimes, and not all the times, but the side streets are generally all right, and there's a walkability factor where that's maybe not all a bad thing all the time, if you have to walk a block to get to a destination. So
I think parking is perceived a problem way more than it really is, and I think you can say parking is bad if you pull up to the store you want to go to or the restaurant and you can't park right in front. Well, then by God, parking is a real problem.
Right.
So yes, if that new thing goes in where the fire department is, where the old fire department was, yeah, there's talk about that. I don't know. I mean, that's still pending. It hasn't been approved or anything yet. So that's new. But there's a lot more parking than people are aware of, and we have a map on the village website. I think the chamber's got it also. There's just a lot of parking. So.
I met with a resident who's actively involved with housing for adults with disabilities, and she said more than just the raw availability of parking itself, it's accessible parking is an issue in Mount Horeb, and she deals with it every day, helping people get to where they need to go, or her own child. That's something that I think we could look at too, just how do we make Mount Horeb more welcoming for people with...
Well, they come forward and they ask for a disabled spot. That's all, they gotta do that, and that's how come we have more than we used to. I mean, we're not gonna just make the whole street for disabled people.
No, I'm not saying that, but
right, but I mean, then
think about it.
She should come forward and ask that. I mean,
maybe she has. I'll follow up with her.
Okay.
The proposal for First Street, the old fire department location, it sounds like they've taken into account adding additional parking besides what's needed for residents. Again, that we're probably a couple years out from that even being a thing, so I think it will be addressed more thoroughly by the Plan Commission and the board. Tim said side street parking is generally available. I agree, maybe that's not a popular option for residents who live on those streets, but it's definitely an option. Thinking about signage, and also people forget about the lot behind the future drift list too, so.
Awesome. Ben, do you have a comment, 30-second comment on this one?
I think we can go on.
Great, thank you. All right, then Kathy. Several years ago, the village passed an ordinance creating a room tax to generate funds for heads and beds marketing efforts. The Room Tax Commission currently hires the Chamber of Commerce to carry out these efforts, these marketing efforts. What are your thoughts about that program, including the current tax rate, the allocation of funds between the village and the chamber, and what is your analysis, it's the most important question, your analysis of those marketing efforts?
First of all, I thought program should have been started the moment they dug the first shovel into the Grand Stay Hotel. I was all for that. I thought it was nuts, and the reason was, oh, well then people won't stay at the hotel because we have hotel tax. So how many people go to a hotel or when you call and you say, well, what are the taxes? And then how many people complain? It's like you go to a restaurant. Yeah, your steak was $10, but you're gonna end up paying $10.62 or whatever the rate is. So I'm really happy that we have the program. I mean, I fully support it. Number one, I think the chamber, can you talk? Or are you supposed to never say a word? I believe the split is...
Rachel is permitted to talk.
Okay, is it 78-12?
That sounds right. 88-12.
88-12? Okay, so they, meaning the chamber, get 88% of all the room tax. So I think that's a fair amount. I think the village should get something. I mean, I have no qualms with us only taking 12. Should we take more? I don't think so. I think the chamber's tasked with doing what they're doing, and they need money if they want to advertise in like Milwaukee Magazine and these outlying places, get buses to come here. I mean, there's a lot of different things that it requires. So I'm happy with the program. I was sorry about COVID, not only for all the problems that COVID had, but just looking at it from a business standpoint, it really took a toll on the room tax collection.
Anyone else on the Heads to Beds marketing effort?
Well, I think that, first of all, when we call for a motel, we get the rate, and we go to the motel because it's in the town, it's in wherever we're gonna be. And if we go to another place in town, they're gonna have the same room tax. And so I don't see people detouring to Mount Horeb and going to Madison with a higher tax and a higher room rate. So I think it does serve a purpose. I think it serves the community. So I think it's a good thing.
Great. Ben or Nate?
I'm all agreement. I don't think there's any disagreement there.
Yeah, I'm good.
So, is there anything that any of you would change about how the village markets itself externally? So, is there anything wrong about the what we say about the village, how we do it? I mean, is there anything that you've changed?
I think it would play up the walkability and the recreation aspect of it, and perhaps we could do more planning on the best places, the most sensible places to walk, or maybe the most historic tours you can take walking, and build it up that way, because as far as people coming to Mount Horeb, a lot of it's coming for Cairo Basin, or Blue Mountains, or Stewart Park, or Donald Park. And so I think recreation is a big thing, and I think if we can incorporate that into the community and make it a more pedestrian-friendly town, I think it's nothing but good.
Great.
We do have a walking map with historic buildings, I mean,
Yeah,
okay. So, I mean, we do that.
Reaching out to local attractions, like Car Patrol received so much business from the Cave of the Mounds. They had a sign and they actively promoted the Car Patrol, and I couldn't tell you how many people came in from the Cave of the Mounds and had a burger and a beer. It was incredible. So more diversified outreach like that, and I'm sure there are many things that I don't know about, but you know, those direct interventional, here's a sign, working with those businesses.
Well, that's why I
Like
think the
that to kinda drive
chamber is
people here.
so vital.
Yeah.
yeah.
Because, I mean, the village isn't gonna make arrangements for the Cave of the Mounds for people to go grumpy. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just not in their wheelhouse. But
Yeah.
that's why I think the chamber is just a very important asset to this community. And, because they can make those deals, and like the hotel used to have deals for Tyrol, and maybe they still do, I don't know. But, the village, you know, we're a business, and, you know, we run it, it's a business. Just because it's a government doesn't, and so it's gotta run like a business. We're in the, you know, process of making good revenue, of keeping tax base low, having the village run smoothly. I don't know, I think they could market better to residents. It would have nothing to do with tourists. I think I'm in favor of getting a newsletter going. They always love when I make these ideas. Here she goes again. But other communities do it, and I think that's sort of one of the things I want to get moving on. But
You know, also as far as, from an aspect of a new resident, I think we can do more as far as marketing the community and letting folks know what's available, and also just, there's a lot of things with the new resident, just talking up MHTC and how you get internet and such, and because it's hard to find internet unless you have internet. So yeah, so I think we can do a better job of the people that's moving here, selling the community.
Can never have too many trolls. That's my view. Always more trolls. When I started coming to be like, oh, that's the troll town. That's great. I love it. It's something to do. But the truth is, I think the chamber and other people, they're professionals. And then I reserve the right to have marketing opinions, but it's not something I'm going to be bringing a lot of expertise on.
Okay, great. Anyone else on this topic? Great. Let's move to annexation. So, I think let's answer this question one of two ways. You pick the way. I don't care. What's the village's? What's your assessment of the village's annexation plan? Is it good or is it bad? And what kind of relationship should the village have with bordering municipalities as it executes that annexation plan? So, what's that? I'm on Tim. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, sorry, Tim.
Well, good. Yeah, I've been thinking about annexation for 36 years since we moved into the area, and we lived in a drafty old one-room schoolhouse in the town of Springdale, and so knowing about annexation, and I think annexation is a tool, but I think it should be used prudently. And I think it should be used with in collaboration, or maybe that's the wrong word. So both sides of the town and the village are aware of what's going on, and it's open and transparent. And I think that for the prudent part of it, a lot of what makes Mount Horeb special is that we have towns with land use plans that give us a sense, and not a sense, but an actual rural landscape. And I think Mount Horeb wouldn't be anywhere near the community it is if we were just an extension of Verona. So I think we really have to be careful, but at the same time we have to know the needs of the community, and we have to act on that. So with that, I think that's my thoughts on the matter.
Great. Other thoughts on annexation?
Well, I think Wisconsin law is relatively favorable to annexation, and I think that's something that we have to be willing to use, and I think it's benefited communities here in Wisconsin, and that it allows village governments and city governments really to adapt to changing circumstances and development without, sprawl, taking over. So I think we have to be diplomatic, and I think Tim's absolutely right that communication and transparency is important with our surrounding communities, but I think it is a beneficial thing that we should continue to use when appropriate.
We've been working with Springdale, just on some little things right now, but we have a very good working relationship with them. And we're very open with them, and I think that's how we as a village are. On the flip side of the coin, you can have a community that isn't exactly agreeable in wanting to deal with any of this, so then they don't meet with us. We've tried again to get meetings, and theoretically it's going to be happening, but it's got to take two.
Right.
And if you've got a community that wants really nothing to do with Mount Horeb and looks at it negatively, well, I mean, we got to plow forward because legally we have the right to the 1.5 miles, and
Right.
it's certainly easier if everyone gets along.
Yeah, it's a useful tool. We have to use it judiciously and play nice. What Mount Horeb does affects those communities and their aesthetics and their quality of life too. Things like traffic concerns. And again, I would promote analyzing existing properties, underused properties, promoting that before going to annexation, but I mean, it will occasionally need to be done. The village will need to expand its boundaries, even though that's difficult due to the topography, et cetera. But let's do it, but let's do it carefully and when we need to, and not just because we can.
But I think another question that has in a way to do with annexation that's important, and it doesn't have an answer, and I don't expect an answer, is how big do we want to be? I think that has to be thought of. I mean, I don't think people want to become another Verona,
Right.
or they want to become a Middleton. We are Mount Horeb. And so I'm not big on doing all this stuff just because. I think there's got to be a valid reason, and
It's a tricky question because I think a lot of people want the amenities of Verona or Middleton.
then they should have moved there.
Well,
I mean,
things like,
we're not begging people to move to Mount Horeb, but they're coming to Mount Horeb for reasons.
Yeah, but I mean, like it or not, we're part of this Dane County web. That's very, the population is growing. There's a lot going on. We're kind of part of that now, whether we want to admit it or not. So things like the hot topics that are always discussed on Facebook, having an indoor pool, things like that are expensive. But almost all of our neighboring communities do have.
Well, maybe someday. That's something. We're never going to have a Target. I mean, we're not.
Agreed.
We've got that all written. I mean, that can't even happen. I'm not talking about the pool. That to me is a completely different thing. I mean,
It's just an example of people do want these things, and they do, and growth is going to be necessary to pay for those things. So
or there's a thing as fundraising. You can have shares with the school, and I mean, look at the Veterans Memorial Association raised $350,000. That's a lot of money.
yeah, agreed.
So
There's multiple ways to go about it, but
And again, I think the comprehensive plan does a fairly good job of talking about infill and, a lot of things you can do instead of annexation. So I think annexation is like, not the first choice, it's the choice farther down the line.
Anything else on annexation? That was
I also don't think we want to just tell people if this isn't the town you want to be in, just move either. I mean, we have to, we want to, I know what you're saying, but.
well, then say it. I'm saying how I feel. I
Oh, that's
feel
fine,
that
yeah.
if people are going to sit and mope and they hate everything about their town, move. If people hate their job, quit. I'm just not one for putting up what you don't like. I mean, solve your own problem.
Sure, well,
I
but
mean-
they can't solve all those problems themselves. They need money, they need government, they need et cetera.
I don't know, I'm sorry, people need to make choices that work with them and not complain about it all the time, because life is so sad if you're just always negative about stuff.
Life would be happier with an indoor pool. Okay, let's move.
All right. Very
I
good.
asked for
Nate,
fireworks.
Nate, here's the next question for you. So, the village has a pool that, from what I understand, is in need of some repair. The schools don't have a pool. They drive to Verona to participate in a co-op, which, from what I understand, is going away. How would you feel, Nate, as a village trustee, about some sort of financial partnership with the school district on a new pool?
Is this actually my question?
This is actually
Wow,
your
that's
question.
Incredibly.
Yeah, so you get what you want. Aren't you happy?
I am, please. So the question was financial partnerships.
One financial partnership.
Financial partnership.
Yeah.
I'm for that. I think schools and the village are part and parcel. I mean, obviously they have their own agendas, but without quality schools, we're not much. So I think, referring to our previous debate, the fact that people are shipped off to local communities to use amenities that they desire is indicative that we should seriously listen to people when they ask for these things. And yes, they're expensive. We have a pretty supportive community when it comes to funding things like this, privately and publicly. Referendums, school projects generally pass, and that's great. It's the kind of community I want to live in. People want to give back and pay for things that help the kids. So, generically speaking, yes, I would support a financial partnership. And I think it would just be fantastic for the town, generically speaking, to have like a fitness center, a recreational center that's also available for people to use of all ages, public access, public activities. Another thing that Mount Horeb is short on is activities and programs for people with different abilities. So that's been specifically mentioned to me as well, and for seniors. So having access to facilities to make people healthier, happier. The pool again. No, I think I would very much support that. Yeah.
The devil's in the details. So, and you can't expect the question like this to have all the details, and I don't know. But, it's, and I'll just say, a good pool does not a school make. A school does not a good, you know what I mean. So, I think I'm open-minded to in the future, exploring partnerships. I think, one, we should be willing to have partnerships with, that's definitely an area of possible synergy with the school district, but, I don't want to, there's a lot of headaches that go with an indoor pool. There's a lot of expenses, and we just don't want to go ahead, that would be a long-term thing, and the devil's is in the details. So that's, and just because, Middleton has it, or what have you, doesn't mean that it's going to be the best choice for Mount Horeb.
Tim.
So, yeah, just a couple things on that. It just seems like the natural thing would be a referendum for improvements for the school rather than a joint agreement with the village. And just kind of a side note as far as outdoor pool, I grew up as a kid in Ridgewood and belonged to Ridgewood Pool and was outside all summer. And I think it's good for people to be outside, and I think outdoor pools have a spot, so.
Great. Anything on this one, Kathy?
I was promised opinions.
Pardon me?
I was promised opinions.
I'd be open to it. I think the pool that we do have, I think it's pretty good right now, because we put a lot of money into it 1 or 2 years ago. Grand Stay is a pool. They get a ton of residents that use it. Can the swim club use it? No, it's not geared for that. But they do, I just asked them the other day, and swimmers are all coming back. I'm surprised at how many, as far as the fitness center goes, I think we have 3 fitness clubs in town. Again, you can join a fitness club. The recreation department, I believe, has fitness classes, so they're there. What I would be in favor of would be, and I don't even know what I mean by this, but I think it'd be great to have an outdoor, maybe like a roof sort of over it in case the weather is bad, but a place where it'd be like a community gathering. We could have music, you could do, it'd just be funky to have. I think it would be really nice, you know, to have that. And we haven't started talking yet, but we got roughly $780,000 for that American Rescue Plan or whatever the thing is. So that's one of the things that's going to be coming up on the agenda or to the village, is what to do with that money. There are guidelines, but I tend to read a lot, and there's a community not far from here called Janesville, and they're using, my hometown, so they're using a lot of that money to build a hockey center in a hole in the Sears parking lot, or where Sears used to be. And they're contributing some of that money, but they're also having city people raise, I think, $750,000. Again, I'm a big believer. We wouldn't have the Historical Society had it not been for the Schlucks putting up $250,000 and starting and doing the match program. The same with the memorial. I just think that it's a community thing, so it shouldn't just be, you know, the village shouldn't be just the school, it should be all of us.
Agreed. I kind of see the pool as a larger metaphor for all of these things that we're discussing, really. Like, and like the hockey rink too. Like, that's another thing that people.
Well, we might as well get lacrosse.
We ship kids off to soccer or Middleton or wherever they play hockey. I mean, you lose a lot of. It's like look at the basketball tournament we had this past weekend. Town is just teeming with families and people going to the restaurants.
Yeah.
It's huge. Like
the Trollway Classic.
So you have private fundraising, you have village input, you have referendums, you have school board funding. You can work on interesting projects together with various funding sources. I'm saying people do want these certain amenities, and they do improve the livability and the economic viability of the town in general.
Great. We will move on to Ben. Let's see, Ben. Ben, so thinking about undeveloped areas on the edges of the village, particularly to the east and to the west. And obviously we have a comprehensive plan that treats how those areas should be developed, but what's your, generally speaking, what's your philosophy about how undeveloped areas like that should be utilized in the village, particularly those outlying?
Yeah, well, I mean, greenfield development, you know, gives you some different options than infill, and especially in the downtown. So I think, you know I don't have the comprehensive plan right in front of me, but I absolutely support an industrial park. You know, I think, you know, there's been a lot of energy on kind of the small businesses and the touristy businesses in downtown, but you know, Mount Horeb is also a good geographic location here you know, pretty close to Madison and pretty close to Verona, but also out a little bit. And I think that has a lot of appeal. And so some of that, and right on the interstate there, or the highway there, I should say. So, I mean, I think I would absolutely hope we're going to be aggressive on, you know, employers and larger businesses, commercial businesses, see what we can get there, especially with, you know, good visibility on the highway and good commuting locations there. So, I mean, that's kind of, you know, that's my vision. You know, that's, I think, the difference between, you know, the downtown historic center and between some of those outlying areas. You know, more detailed than that, you know, I think we have to follow the market too. You know, we have to listen to the market. So I think I've seen in my life and my experience is that governments go bad when they're too wedded to their plan. The plan's important. I think we have a very comprehensive plan. I think I've heard that here, and I think it's true. But we, you know, government needs to be a partner and go, you know, where things go. So, and I think, you know, when we Yeah, so that's where I go, and that's where I think the greenfield now outside development, that's where it's different versus some of the infill here we have in downtown.
Awesome.
I think, west, I think a lot of it would be like, because there's landowners that want to develop homes there. So I have a feeling that's probably what's gonna happen. East, I think we've just sort of had targeted for an industrial park. I'm in favor of taking a risk at some point and calculate a risk and be ready. I mean, that's why we got into trouble losing Vortex. We weren't ready. We didn't have the land available. So they went to, who? Yeah, but I always get that in Blanchardville mixed up. I just have a block with those two towns. They're both B words, sort of like Cam with a C. So have an industrial park, but maybe own the land. Get the land all situated, whether the park comes in 2 or 3 years, I don't know. But that's down the road. But again, we're gonna have to deal, if we're gonna have it shovel ready, I don't know financially if we can swing that. I mean, getting the water and sewer and electric probably isn't that big of a deal, but the utilities, which is what they're gonna need, and right now our utilities are stressed. It's gonna get better because we're building a new place, but I mean, all these things come into consideration, but I think industrial park, I like to focus on that.
I think there's different types of industry, and I think we should be careful in what we want. I think there's light industry, which is good and it contributes to the tax base. I just think there are some industries that I don't think we really want to be part of because of our infrastructure. And and also, getting a shovel ready, that's quite a bit of resources for us. And we want to make sure that materializes. So I think we have to be kind of prudent as far as how much money we want to put into something that we don't know is going to pan out.
Good point.
And then the other thing about industry is, a lot of times everything's set up and they come in and, I think they're kind of using governments as for their profit margin because they don't provide the infrastructure. I think the perfect example of that actually is Epic. And if you look at the amount of infrastructure that the area has had to put in for Epic, and granted, Epic is a big deal and a big employer, and probably a pretty good company, but a good share of the community's money went into the infrastructure to get it there. So I just think we have to be, have a good eye to the vision for what we want.
I feel like the specter of the ATC CHC line is an issue for the east side as well.
Yeah.
It's kind of up in the air. They're obviously, you see the wood pile up there petitioning that we're clearing the easements, but the development was halted over the Mississippi River with the wildlife refuge issues. So I don't know, I feel like there's a ton of question marks involved with that too. How can you plan around that as far as we're going to see an aesthetic decline if that line goes in, the easements, that's going to have to be a big consideration when we're looking at these development.
I think as far as the comprehensive plan, ATC is kind of the elephant in the room. It was never addressed, and I think it is a really big deal.
We have no control over it.
Right.
Yeah,
But I think
It's
it's
still in court. I mean, I don't know. They're still gonna put, those lines are so ugly, those poles.
Yeah.
But
Great, anything else on this topic? Great, we'll move to Kathy.
Oh.
Kathy, give us your assessment of the village's progress with economic development. And I'd like you to think about it in 2 ways. First, one really, really good thing that the village has done, and one thing that you think needs shoring up over time in terms of economic development.
I think that what needs shoring up is our whole process. It needs to be overhauled. I think the building and zoning area, it has to be streamlined. It needs to it needs to have processes. I'm a procedure person. It's got some growing to do. What it has done good is marketed Mount Horeb as far as places to eat, and now the chamber has taken that over pretty much, and you've got a great media person handling that, but there is more to Mount Horeb. I mean, from an economic development standpoint, we have to focus on the big picture and not these little bitty places. Because the chamber is doing all that, and I think hopefully that with time it's going to become more processed, more organized.
Awesome. Anybody else on economic development?
Looking at starting at the ground up too, again, looking at affordable housing options, partnerships to make that happen. Economic development can spring from just helping residents live here, and things will naturally follow from that, making it accessible to everyone.
Well, can I just throw in, I wasn't thinking about housing, but that's a good point.
Thank you.
No, I think it is. I think that's a big thing. Because, you know, we have 329 units already, houses and townhouses and senior and income-based in the works. 329 units. I think that we need to slow down and get those filled, see how they go. I don't know, this could be I don't know if this is gonna turn into 2008 or 7 and 8 again, where, I mean, it's going nuts how things are getting. I just read an article, the title transfers in the state of Wisconsin were up 137% last year. It has never been like that. I mean, it's just broken their income, the revenue from it. So I think we need to slow down and if then see where we're at. Yes, the housing study, I think we've done 3, 2012, 14, and then a recent one. That's when in doubt, you know, form a committee, when in doubt, have another housing study done. They've all said the same thing. You need more high-income housing. Do you think I'm wrong?
No, I absolutely think you're right. That's
Yeah.
why I'm laughing.
Yeah, we need more low income, we need the seniors are all gonna move out of town, so they have nowhere to live, blah, 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 but every report has said the same thing. I don't know why we keep paying money to have the same reports done, and anyway, we have 329 things going on right now, and I think we need to take time and see how that all reacts. I mean, we have, I can, if you care, I have the exact specifics of what percentage of the 329 are earmarked for every different position, because I wrote that down. I'm so glad you brought that up, because it really, it's a hot button for me.
No, it's a big one. I think it's the biggest thing.
See how calm I can be? I didn't even think of that. Now you got me all riled up.
We can argue on Facebook later.
I think it'll be really interesting, because right now we have X amount of apartments, and pretty quick here, we're gonna have a whole lot more apartments. And
I have 123.
We'll have 123, and then you're still talking more apartments.
60 single family.
60, so it'll be really interesting to see how that pans out, whether those fill up right away.
I know.
Whether there is a need.
I know.
So, yeah, I think we really have to have more studies.
Yeah, let's have another study
Let's have
done.
another study in a year. What do you say?
I'll just say, I think, you know, what Kathy said about, you know, really working on streamlining our building and zoning process, you know, that affects housing too. And, you know, I think affordable housing projects absolutely have a place in the village, but, you know, if we make it easier to handle the development process as easy as possible, things will bubble up, even without village-led or village-driven projects.
Great. Anything else on this topic? We're gonna move to Tim for a final question, and then we'll move to final questions for each of you. Tim, the village board assigns a trustee as a liaison to the chamber. What should the role of that liaison be?
Oh, I think the role should be, first of all, gathering the information from the chamber that the chamber has and applying that as we need to, or looking at that and applying it to our future development and with the needs of Mount Horeb. So I think the two is absolutely on the same page. You know, we're working for the same thing. We're working for a vitalized Mount Horeb and a one that's sustainable and will grow. So I think the two are just two halves of the equation. So not sure what else I can say about that.
It's okay.
We've had Ryan Suzuki has done it since, well,
Long time.
yeah, let me see, yeah, he's done it for 8 or 9 years, and he reports every month
Yeah.
on what's going on. He was on the board for quite a while, so.
Anything else on the question of liaison? Ryan does an outstanding job. Great, so here's what we're gonna do for the final question. We give each of you a minute and a half to tell the voters of Mount Horeb why you should be elected to the village board. There won't be the follow-up discussion that we've had throughout the evening.
We can't agree or disagree.
You can't agree or disagree. And we'll conclude the forum with that question. So I'm gonna start with Nate. Nate, why should the voters of Mount Horeb elect you to the village board? You've got a minute and a half.
All right, on my pamphlets, and the three keywords are inclusive, open, and engaged, and that's my priority is interacting with residents, businesses, nonprofits, everyone, listening to what they need, and kind of being proactive about what happens in this town. And met with lots of different people over the last few weeks, talking about housing, talking about the role of the senior center in town here and the amazing work they do. Just going out there and listening and learning from these folks who are out there every day, really doing amazing work that people don't even hear about, has been pretty inspiring. So my main thing is really getting out there and talking to people directly and kind of preemptively recognizing trends, things we need to consider, and getting out in front of it. I'm proud of our quirky, attractive village, and I want to keep it that way and make it a nice place for everyone to live. And with that, promoting economic development sustainably and responsibly. And yeah, I think have good at listening and assessing situations and analyzing data and putting it together and presenting it and hopefully helping things advance.
Great, thanks Nate. Ben.
Thanks, Rod. Well, first I want to say I think it's great. It's great to meet all the candidates here. I think it's fantastic that we have a contested election this year after I think a few years of some uncontested election. It's great to meet and hear some of the other candidates and see how much people have in common here about where we want to see the village go and that everyone has the village's best interests at heart. Now, I think you should vote for me. I'd like to ask for everybody's vote here for a few reasons. I think first, I think I bring a unique experience and skill set to the board. I'm an administrative judge, a government attorney. I'm used to asking the hard, tough questions, gathering all the evidence, and making sure decisions are being made correctly and based on So I'm gonna make data-driven decisions here for the village and look at the best interests of the people at heart. I have experience setting budgets for large nonprofit organizations, ensuring oversight of spending and other actions, zoning issues, as well as large other government issues and policy issues. Also, I'm here for the long haul. I'm a father of 3 young children here in the village. I think sometimes those people with young children and are a little underrepresented at the leadership of municipal government. So I think I'd be excited to bring kind of a long-term outlook and perspective and a family focus to the board. So I'd appreciate everyone's watching if you'd consider giving me your vote on April 5th. You can vote early, or you can vote on Tuesday, April 5th. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Kathy?
Oh, this is like my weakest area. I have a hard time asking for like help. But I guess I need help if I really like working with the village. Obviously, I keep doing it. I don't bring you'll be here forever. I'm on the way out, so they can't be stuck with me forever. But I would like one more opportunity. I'm pretty engaged. I take seriously what I do. I read up on stuff. I read other things, and I'm always giving the village staff ideas. I don't know if they like it or not, but they don't roll their eyes in front of me. So they're good at that. So I would appreciate a vote to have one more opportunity to serve for 3 more years. There's certain things I wouldn't want to do on the village, certain committees that I absolutely have no interest in, others I do, and I'm on them. Isn't that funny? So anyway, I too would appreciate your vote.
Thank you, Kathy. Tim?
Well, when I decided to run, it was for a few reasons. One was I'm a fan of democracy. I'm a fan of competitive elections. And on the state and national level, we don't have enough of them. And everything seems to be predetermined these days. But it's great to have a competitive election and not a combative election. And that's what local politics is. We can talk about differences, but when it comes together, we're all in the same community and we're all working for the same thing. We're working for the long-term sustainability of the community. We're looking for a community that looks after their own and also invites others. And so that's one reason I ran. The other reason is I love Mount Horeb. I haven't lived within the boundaries that long, but I've lived in we had a choice of, when we moved into Springdale 36 years ago, we had a choice of either adopting a hometown in Verona or Mount Horeb. And there was never any doubt which way we'd fall. And so I came to town and worked with the Historical Society for a decade and a half. And while I was doing that, I learned so much about the community's past. And I just think that we have something special, and we have to retain the good things that we have and also build on it. Because you don't have to travel too many miles down the road to see towns that are boarded up and really have no reason to exist besides a bedroom. And Mount Horeb is different that way. We have culture, we have community, we have a lot of great local businesses, and we have trolls. So what the hey? Let's keep what we have and build on it. And so thank you. And I want to thank everybody at the doors too, because I've met so many great people and had so many really special conversations, and it just is Mount Horeb full of unique people, and that's what makes us not only a bounded village, but it makes us a community. So I want to thank everybody and ask for your vote.
Yeah,
okay, there you go. Lousy at self-promotion, but I'd like your vote.
Well, that brings us to the conclusion of tonight's forum, and as usual in Mount Horeb, we have a lot to be thankful for. I want to thank the candidates for their participation, Nate Gauger, Ben Jones, Kathy Scott, and Tim White. I want to thank the Mount Horeb Area Chamber of Commerce for hosting this event tonight, for Rachel's great help throughout the evening, and for the Business Advocacy Committee for their help in putting most of the questions together. And of course, I want to say another thank you to Wisco Radio for their help in broadcasting this event. Thanks to Cam on Cam tonight for for his help. So thank you again for being with us, and remember to vote on April 5th or with early voting before then. Thank you.
Thank you, Rod.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rod.